Hey everyone, this is Quinton. I'm here with Alyssa from Alyssa Arlene Events. We're here to do a video for y'all. Um, we're gonna talk about wedding planning and coordinating and why it's important for you to do this, couples. I'm gonna start off first by introducing myself. I'm Quinton of Quinton Charles Photography. I've been doing photography for about 8 years now. I love photography, music, Jesus, anything old and vintage. It inspires me. And I feel weird talking about myself. I have a lovely wife, a son, and a baby on the way. We're going to find out what we're having Monday. Maybe that's too much information. I don't know. But either way, yeah, that's just kind of who I am. And Alyssa, you could tell everyone about yourself.
Okay, so I'm Alyssa with Alyssa Arlene Events. I've done wedding planning for about 8 years now. Prior to that, I worked as a wedding assistant for a few years. And yeah, prior to that, I did corporate and nonprofit events. So I kind of have a lot of experience in a lot of different areas of event planning. Obviously, weddings are my favorite, and that is the focus of our business. I have a 4-year-old little boy and a 9-month-old little baby girl. It's a crazy time right now with 2 kids, but it's super fun. My husband works for the city, so he's awesome. We've been together for like 13 years now. We recently moved to Brobridge, and so Quentin and I are in the same area. It's kind of fun. Slower pace. It's nice little country life that we're doing out here. I'm excited to do this with you today. We'll see how it goes. I can be an awkward turtle sometimes, so y'all got to be nice in the comments.
Yeah, y'all don't roast us, y'all.
Yeah, no, please. It's already tough out here.
What was that?
I said it's already tough out here. We don't need people being mean.
I know, right? That's the last thing we need right now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start off with the first question. I'm just kind of reading from my iPad because I have a horrible memory.
Okay.
I can't remember this stuff like impromptu. Okay, so this is like a question I've like always wanted to ask planners, coordinators. I'm not sure what y'all even prefer to be called, but what is the difference between a planner and a coordinator?
So this is one of my favorite questions, and I'm super passionate about explaining the difference and why it's so important to understand the difference. So I am a wedding planner. A wedding planner will be with you throughout the planning process. Many people call themselves coordinators and things like that, and what they do is a much smaller version of what we do. So there are areas of this. So a venue coordinator, their job is to run and manage the venue where you're having your event. They are not a wedding planner. You might find some venue coordinators that are super nice, that are willing to answer some questions for you throughout the process, that are maybe willing to help you with your reception timeline, but they are not going to help you throughout the entire duration of planning. They're not going to help you with your vendor questions. They're not going to make your wedding day timeline or your production schedule or confirm final balances with your vendors. They're not going to provide you with etiquette answers. Their sole purpose is to run and manage the venue. On your wedding day, they might help you with a few things that you might need help with during the ceremony or the reception. But they are there to advocate for and manage the venue. That is their job. And it's not bad. It's not a bad thing that they're not, going to do all of these extra things for you. It's just that's not the sole purpose of what they are hired to do. A wedding planner is your advocate. We are there to do what you need, to be there for you, whether that's through the whole planning process or just a few weeks prior to the wedding day. We are always there for you. So we're at your venue, we're working with your venue coordinator. I would say 100% of venue coordinators love having wedding planners. It makes their job a lot easier. There's a far fewer instances of things not going right because we know what to expect. They are able to focus on what they should be focusing on, and we are able to focus on all of the other aspects of the day. Some people will call themselves event coordinators. And that's different from a wedding planner in that they usually don't work with you throughout the entire duration of the process. Some of them will do like day of coordinating.
I've heard that.
Which is a unicorn. This is a unicorn that should not exist. It is impossible for someone to execute your wedding day, a day that you have spent a year or more planning, thousands of dollars to execute this in the way that it needs to be executed if they are a day of planner. Now, I do offer month of wedding planning services. We start about 45 days out. It is more of an event management package in that I get copies of all your vendor contracts. I work with you to finalize all of the details, and we go more into it like that. It is not just showing up a week before the wedding, we have a meeting, we get some information. That's just not enough time. And so people do call themselves event coordinators, and they do a much smaller aspect of coordination. But I would say myself, a wedding planner, because I'm with you to actually help you plan out every single detail of the wedding, even with our smallest package. I'm helping you plan and finalize all of those final details for the wedding day. So yeah, so people get confused. A lot of the times they think, oh, well, my venue has a venue coordinator, I don't need a wedding planner, but you do, because once again, they are there to do, their job is to run and manage the venue. Their job is not to be there to be your wedding planner. It's very different. And so a lot of people say that, a lot of people, that's like their reasoning, but I can attest to the fact that 100%, let's say like 95% of, just to be on the safe side, of venue coordinators love having wedding planners. It makes everyone's job easier. So yeah, so that, I would say that's like the biggest difference.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really good clarification, because I didn't know. I thought, like, your planner is also your coordinator, which, I mean,
well,
I guess you do become a coordinator.
Yeah. Yeah. So a wedding planner is also a wedding coordinator, I guess, in a sense, but a wedding coordinator is not a wedding planner. A venue coordinator is not a wedding planner.
You're like you're everything wrapped in one.
Yeah,
which couples really need.
Yes, thank you.
So I didn't have this written down as a question, so it's kind of spontaneous for you. So how is it with venue coordinators working with planners? Because I've worked with a few venue coordinators who just control the whole day, and honestly, a lot of the times it's a disaster, because they haven't planned with the bride and the groom, so they don't know exactly what they want. It's just kind of like cookie cutter, and for them at least, it's cookie cutter, and they step on a lot of people's toes sometimes. But I have worked with awesome venue coordinators. So like at the White Magnolia and Kentwood, they are awesome.
Yeah.
They are, like, I've worked with them, I think, like 2 times already, and they're amazing. I love working with them. But they're venue coordinators. They aren't. I'm not sure if they do a full planning service or not. So how is that relationship between y'all?
I would say, in my experience, there have been very few instances where I've had venue coordinators that were very resistant to any sort of change or working, in a cohesive relationship. All of the ones that I have worked with throughout Louisiana and Mississippi have been wonderful. Whenever I come in, if you know me, you know that I can get along with just about anybody. And I work very hard to do that, because while I am also advocating for my brides, I'm a huge advocate for vendors and working together, community over competition. Like, that is I'm super passionate about that. And so I am always willing to work with the venue coordinators in whatever aspect, we need to, in order to get the job done. Maybe a couple of times I've had some venue coordinators that were resistant to more like layout changes, or things that, people above them, like, it just went above their head. They're not allowed to, make a judgment call on certain things. And so in those instances, it's just, if we can't change this, if this is, what the owner of the property is saying we absolutely cannot do, then that's no one's fault. But I haven't really had any bad or difficult venue coordinators. I would say most of them are always willing to, work together, communicate with us, because if I'm your full service planner, or even working with you on some design aspects and things like that with a smaller package, your venue coordinator is going to go through me ideally, because I like to speak to them directly, work with them on the layout, work with them on, if they're providing catering or bar services or things like that. So I haven't really had any difficult situations, but I think that in those situations, maybe where you have had some venue coordinators where things didn't go so well, maybe they didn't have a wedding planner that was there to advocate for the things that the bride and groom would want. And we know, because we've worked with you, we've communicated with the client what they want. I know exactly what their expectations are, so I'm able to make sure that it happens in that way for them. Whereas your venue coordinator doesn't know that. So that might have been those situations. But no, I haven't had any bad ones, really.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I try really hard to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, I've had some difficult church people.
Yes, I think we've all had our fair share.
Church ladies and the
difficult church. Yes, indeed. So my next question, that was actually fantastic the way you answered that. That was, it's like just the way you're talking now it's really like debunking a lot of myths that I think that's in the idea of having a coordinator versus a planner. Just already, I'm like, okay, this is why brides need this.
Thank you.
So my next question is, what are the advantages of having a planner and not just a day of coordinator for the wedding?
So like I kind of said before, that day of situation, even if they come in a week or 2 weeks prior, it's just not enough time. So having a wedding planner, we are able to communicate with you from, further away. I don't know what I'm trying to say. A longer period of time of communication to know exactly what you're wanting, exactly what you've agreed to with your vendors, exactly what your contracts say. We go through all of this communication with you. We get to know you personally, because there have been times where, many times where I've had to make executive decisions on the spot the day of, but I know my clients so well. I know, oh, she's not going to care about this, or, oh no, like this is important. This needs to be exactly like this kind of thing. And I think if you haven't worked with someone for an extensive period of time, there is no way for that person to know and make those decisions that they will need to make inevitably at some events for you on your behalf. It's just not possible. It's also difficult for those people, those planners, to just execute what they need to. I start talking to vendors and working on timelines 2 months out sometimes, sometimes even longer than that if I'm full service. And if you're trying to do all of that in a few days or the week before the wedding, your vendors are finalizing details at least a month before the wedding. At minimum. And if you're waiting until that week before, 2 weeks before, you as a bride are going to be more stressed out, because you're having to do all of that. And if you're not having to do it and you're waiting 2 weeks out, a week before your wedding, to finalize those details, then that wedding coordinator, that day of coordinator is going to be incredibly stressed. Nothing's going to get out on time. Who wants to receive a timeline 2 days prior to the wedding? Like, you don't know. Yes. All your vendors need to make plans for these things. So I obviously am an advocate for getting a wedding planner. The longer you have your wedding planner for, obviously the more money you'll be spending, but we can save you money.
Yes.
We can recommend the vendors that are going to work best for you, for your budget, for your style.
That's a big one.
Here's your insurance policy that the thousands of dollars you are spending on this one day, it's going to go exactly as you always wanted it to be. And so the longer you have to work with that wedding planner, the better experience you're going to have.
Wow. I love that. Especially whenever you said where your insurance policy, that, because it makes a difference. It makes a difference.
And I hear that from photographers, florists. I hear that from so many vendors. Because you're having to do it all if there's no wedding planner.
Yes. Like honestly, sometimes I feel like I could be a wedding planner. Like me and my wife, we shoot weddings all the time, and she's like, you know, I could have been their wedding planner.
Because you're
I'm like,
going to tell them, this is what
probably
we're going to do next. This is what, you know, this, have you done the cake cutting? Like, okay, we need to do that.
yes.
If there's no, or the DJ's having to do that, and then you're not able to focus on your one job of getting all those special moments, maybe those candid shots of grandma and grandpa over there, because
Yes.
you're trying to, you know, coordinate something that you shouldn't have to be doing.
Yes. Y'all are, like that's like they're saying right now, y'all are essential. Y'all are essential.
This is why we love you, Quinton.
I appreciate it. We love y'all too. So this brings me to my next question. And you kind of answered it a little bit, but I just want you to elaborate on it a little bit more. Why should a couple have a planner? Like, what's the value in it? Because a lot of couples, they'll just have the event coordinator, like you said. So I think what it is, people don't see the value in wedding planners because they're like, oh, well, I could do it myself, especially if the bride is maybe a bridezilla and she's a control freak. She wants to control everything. I guess some of them would be like, okay, I don't need a planner because I could do it myself. What's the value in having a planner?
So it's funny that you asked that question. Even sometimes when people inquire with me, in their little description, they will say, oh, I have everything under control. Like, I can do it all. You realistically can't. This is my full-time job, and I am a full-time wedding planner for a reason, because planning a wedding is a full-time job. If you maybe don't have a full-time job, or you have a lot of extra time on your hands, sure, you can go with maybe a smaller wedding planning package. But if you are spending money on an event that you want to run perfectly, that you have never ever planned before in your entire life, which most people have not, you need a wedding planner. And that is what it is. Many venues don't have a venue coordinator. They might have a catering manager or something, but that person's in charge of the food. And once again, if your venue does have a venue coordinator, they are not your wedding planner. So as a wedding planner, people are sometimes like, oh my gosh, like that's so much money. Or maybe they either start with us from the beginning, and if they do that, they usually get one of our larger packages, or they start planning and they realize, oh man, this is so much, I need a little bit of help. You need a wedding planner no matter what.
Yeah.
We like I said earlier, we can save you money. I am able to recommend to you vendors that are going to work with your budget, your wedding style, because I've worked with so many. I've worked with so many wedding vendors. I have experience with so many. I know who's going to work with your personality. I know that you're going to love this photographer over this photographer because I now know you, and I know your personality. I know that this baker is going to be able to make you this cake that you want, rather than going to this one who's going to have a little bit more of a struggle with it. I'm able to work with you on your budget. I'm able to tell you, and I love telling people where not to spend money.
Yes.
I always say it's terrible that I'm a wedding planner in that aspect, because I'm the first person to say, no, you don't need that. No, that's not going to have an impact on your overall day. A lot of people that don't have wedding planners spend money in areas that are not going to impact the overall experience on the wedding day. And by being able to focus your funds where it's going to make a difference, hiring professional vendors, having a wedding planner. Like, for example, I always tell people, you can save money in maybe some of your design elements or your venue if your venue's not ideal. But invest in a photographer, because a great photographer can make almost any situation look amazing. And so by giving these brides this knowledge and direction, they're able to save a lot of money. They're able to have the wedding that they want without breaking the bank. And the experience is just so much greater. This is a big event. It's an expensive event. No matter how much you're spending, it's a lot of money to you. So whether you're spending $10,000 or $200,000, $500,000, $15,000, it's a lot of money to you. And you want to make sure that it's all executed in the way that it should be. And investing in a wedding planner is going to help that happen. I mean, I've worked with brides with very small budgets. I've worked with brides with very large budgets. And our services are just important no matter where you are in that, because if you don't have us, then who do you have? You have your mom, your grandma, your aunt, your best friend that's trying to do all this stuff for you.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're doing. You don't know who you're hiring. You're on these Facebook groups asking people these questions, and they have no experience. They haven't done this for 10 years. They have no experience in what you need, what's going to make a difference. Maybe they know what their friend did, but it's not the same as someone who does this, who has the knowledge, and knows all of the behind the scenes elements that are important to making this perfect for you. So I hope that answered your question. Sometimes
no, that answered it like
I like
110% more
things.
than. No, that was perfect. I think while you were talking, it made me think of how some brides might look at, or some couples. Let me not just say brides, because I want to include the groomsmen to groom. Couples might think that, oh, I can't afford to have a planner, but really that's like, it's almost an oxymoron, because you're going to help them save money.
Yes.
You know, but I think we just have this, we go into this, we have a preconceived notion of having a planner is like not a necessity, and that's going to add to their budget.
Right.
Whenever it really could save. Yes. Wow. Like, brides need to know that.
I know.
That's
I feel
a big
the same way. I don't know. You can't afford to not have a wedding planner. I mean, I would say in most cases, whenever we're, helping you direct your spending and direct your budget, we could almost save you our fee. Like, I mean, many times I've been able to save brides the amount of money that they're paying me by guiding them in the right direction on what's going to make a difference in their wedding. It's going to add, if client experience, if your guest experience is super important to you, I can help you. I know what your guests are going to care about, and I know that those little Pinterest signs, having those everywhere is not going to make a difference.
Yeah.
So that's just how you could afford not to.
That's interesting. It makes me think of some weddings that we've shot, bigger budget weddings, but their experience may have not been the best because they spent all their money elsewhere on other really good vendors as well. Not to downplay any vendors, but they had this extravagant, nice wedding, but there was no planner, so the experience wasn't, what they thought. You look at these pictures on Pinterest and just online everywhere, and you see them and you're like, oh my goodness, this is beautiful. I'm gonna have a beautiful wedding. I'm gonna have that. I'm gonna have that. And have everything that's gonna look good. But a good looking wedding isn't necessarily the best wedding.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree 100%. And like, you can have the most beautiful wedding, but if logistically it doesn't make sense, or your timeline doesn't run smoothly, or your vendors don't know what's going on, you don't have someone there advocating for you, managing the event, then it might look pretty, but it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's get to our next question. Well, I think you kind of answered it a little bit, but maybe you can one more time. What would you say to couples that say we could do it on our own as far as having a planner?
You could do it on your own, but should you? You could build a house on your own, but should you? You could, there's a lot of things that you can do on your own, but should you? I mean, if my son cut his hand open, not that I was anywhere near doctor level, I could just maybe throw some super glue on it. That's what my husband would do. Call it good. Or I could take him to a medical professional to get it checked out. If my toilet stopped working, I could probably try to maybe figure it out. It's probably spend a lot more money doing it myself, or I could just call someone who knows what they're doing. Same with building a house, same with anything. We are the contractors of your wedding.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could probably do it on your own, but the end result's going to be a lot different. And the planning process itself is going to be a lot different. It's going to be a lot more stressful. You won't have anyone to run interference between you and your mom, or you and your sister. You won't have anyone to, once again, direct your wedding. This is an example, I get brides that send me their Pinterest boards, and they are all over the place. So
Wow.
you're not going to have anyone direct the design. Just something as simple as that, to something that makes sense and works for you and is really a true reflection of you and your fiance as a couple. So that's just one small aspect of something that we are able to help you with. So yeah, you could do it on your own, but you probably maybe shouldn't.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Right after you said it, it made me think of just yesterday. I went and I was like, okay, you know what? We're quarantining. Uh, we're trying to save money right
Yeah.
now, so like I don't have anywhere to go. So going to the car wash to wash my vehicle is probably not the best idea. I could just wash it myself. So I started washing my truck yesterday, and like midway through, like an hour in, only 10% of the work was done, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is for the birds. I
Yeah.
shouldn't have done it on my own. I
Yeah.
should have brought it to a professional. It would have saved me time. Yeah, I would have spent money, but I would have had more time to do other things,
Exactly.
and
That's
it's
the
less
other thing.
stressful."
The time aspect of it. You're going to be making all these calls. Do you not have to study for, you know, your school? A lot of my clients are either in law school, medical school, nursing school, or they're teachers, or they are actually acting professionals as nurses, doctors, lawyers,
Yeah.
whatever it might be, teachers, and they don't have the time to devote to this. So that you could be hanging out with your family, hanging out with your fiance. One thing that I tell people is that you are maybe a girlfriend, boyfriend, for what could be an extended period of time.
Hmm.
Then you are a fiance for a very short period of time. And then you're a
Wow.
wife, a husband, a partner for the rest of your life. And so that engagement period is such a sweet spot in your life. Everyone is celebrating you. It's so exciting. The anticipation of being a husband or a wife is just, it's amazing, and you want to be able to enjoy that. You want to be able to enjoy the wedding planning process. You want to savor that very short period of time in your life where you are just engaged, and you're able to do that a lot more if you have someone working with you, working for you as your wedding planner, instead of trying to do it all yourself and then stressing out, getting your fiance stressed out,
Yeah.
having them try to make decisions on things that you don't really care about.
No, guys, we just say yes and roll with it.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a really good thing to do.
Yeah.
Unless you want to be a super involved groom, which I've had a few of those.
Which I was. Whenever we got married, I was so involved.
My husband was too. Like the things he would care about, I was like, why do you care about this? But what? It's his wedding too.
Yes, yes, definitely. So let's go on and head on to the next question. Is the coordinator, well, I'm going to say planner now.
Yes.
Uh, the planner, should they be the first person the couple contact before booking vendors?
I would say yes, just primarily because so whenever I start wedding planning with someone, I always tell them the first little bit of time is going to be the most hectic because we're going to try to book the vendors that you want. We discuss your priorities. Are photos a priority? Is having a band a priority? What is important to you? And then that's how we start booking your vendors. So I would say yes, it ideally would be your first point of contact. However, if there is, a photographer that you love, you have to have, or a band that you need, then you
Mhm.
absolutely can call them first. But we should not be your 15th point of contact. We should be
Yeah.
up there, first, second, maybe third. You're just going to have a much better experience overall the sooner you start working with a wedding planner.
Mhm.
You're not going to have to get on Facebook, ask your friends, what DJ do you recommend? What florist do
Yeah.
you recommend? Because those are never really the most ideal situations. So yeah, I
Yeah.
would say you should be the first. If not first, then maybe second or third, but first.
Yeah. I definitely say first.
Yes.
I'd say first because your planner is gonna help you with your venue. Like
Yeah.
not all venues are great,
No,
honestly, and planners
absolutely.
know the best venues. So you getting your planner first, it's so much better because all your vendors after that are gonna be better.
Yeah,
You know.
exactly. I agree. I mean, I agree. I just don't want anyone to get upset for me saying that. But yeah, no, I mean, I think we should be first. Your first point of contact.
Yes. All right. So this is kind of a photographer's question.
Yes.
What do couples usually book first? Planners or photographers?
So for me, it's kind of 50-50. They'll either book me first or they will have already booked their photographer. And if they book their photographer and then they find me, a lot of the times I come as a recommendation from their photographer.
Oh,
So it's kind of 50-50. Rarely does someone book like their florist or something before us. And then, so yeah, it's just kind of 50-50, at least for me.
yeah.
But yeah, so sometimes we work with like one photographer. It might be like a lot of weddings in a row or a lot of weddings that year. And a lot of times if that happens, that photographer is recommending us, which is like how that happens. There's some photographers, and it's amazing to me how some vendors, like their clients just listen to what they say. So there's one photographer in particular that I've worked with quite a lot. And it's just because people listen to her when she says hire us, like, and it's honestly amazing because I'll have, friends and they might make a recommendation. Even sometimes whenever I'm recommending vendors, brides don't necessarily always listen, which they should, but they don't always listen. And it's amazing to me how some vendors, their clients just listen. Like they're just like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Like I'll hire that person. So-and-so said to hire you, so here I am. And it's amazing. But yeah, so for me, in my experience, it's 50-50. Usually they either hire us first or they've already hired the photographer. And if they do, then we usually come with a recommendation from their photographer.
How do photographers get into working with planners to be on their recommendation list?
So I've done this for a pretty long time now. And I would say initially, if you are a newer wedding planner, you probably don't know many vendors. So you're probably looking in your area, seeing, which photographers, videographers, florists, cake bakers, whatever that you are more drawn to. Eventually, I think it's really important to develop a relationship with, those vendors. There are, vendors in all different areas that I just trust. Like I know if I'm having a wedding with these, list of vendors, that there's absolutely nothing that I need to worry about. Like I know they're going to do their job and things like that. And having that relationship is super important. So I think if you are a newer photographer and you're wanting to get, on a wedding planner's vendor list or something like that, it's going to be important to develop that relationship. A lot of the times, I have different vendors that might message me on Facebook, Instagram, email, bands, DJs, different things like that, just telling me who they are and like, hey, like throw me on your list or whatever. And while that's nice, it's not really going to happen. That relationship, at least for me, is super important. I want my client's experience is very important to me, not just their experience with me, but their overall experience with all of their vendors. So I want to work with people and want to recommend people that are going to provide my clients with the kind of experience that I want them to have. For photography in particular, whenever I'm making recommendations to clients, I usually go with people that I've worked with before. And I usually, if they don't know what kind of style, then I start with, a variety of photographers that shoot in different styles so that way they can kind of determine what they like. But that relationship is really important. It's just, it's important to support those wedding planners, to try to develop a relationship with them. Once I've worked with you, a couple of times, and I know like how you work, how you take care of our clients, and how we work together. Is there a friendship there? Is there any kind of a relationship? Then I kind of know like, okay, yeah, I'd love to recommend this person to like more people because I want to work with that person more. So I think that the development of the relationship is just super important. You can be an amazing photographer, but if you don't treat your clients well, I'm probably not going to recommend you. If you aren't treating us very well, I'm probably not going to recommend you. There are some photographers that are hesitant to like change or So they
Mhm.
like, maybe they like do their timelines a certain way. So if you've worked
Yeah.
with me, you know that I call all of my photographers and I work the timeline through with you guys because I want
I
to
love
know
that.
how much time do you want for this? Because I know that at the end of the day, when the wedding's over, all the client has left are the memories and then the tangibles. And those tangibles are the photos and the video if they have video. And so that's super important to me. And so if you're willing to work with me in that way and, you know, take care of my clients and we have a good relationship, then absolutely you're on my list and I'm going to want to work with you more. And I would say for most wedding planners, it's probably the same, you know, just developing that relationship. And that doesn't come until you've had the opportunity to work with them. Or, you know, you've met them for coffee a few times. And that can be a little tricky too, because imagine the amount of people that are trying to get on our list and asking us, hey, can we go for coffee? And it's just not feasible. So it's not like not trying to slight you, not trying to ignore you, but it's just not
Mhm.
feasible to meet with everyone that wants to meet with us.
Exactly.
Just organically, maybe
Yeah.
trying to develop that relationship.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it could be a slow start for like a newer photographer. It can be slower to get in with
Mhm.
those wedding planners. But once you know you work a wedding with them or something like that, then you do it a couple times. You stay in touch. You know, communicate with them on social media, things like that. You know, that relationship will develop organically, and then you'll probably get on their list.
Yeah, definitely. That makes so much sense. I
I
have.
remember the first wedding we worked together, and I loved you from the
Yes. Ah! Yes, I remember. Was it the one that? Oh no, it wasn't La Pavillon. Was it in or was it La
I think
Pavillon?
was it in St. Martinville? I think it was in
Yes. Okay, it was St. Martinville. Yes, I remember now. It was Haley.
yeah.
Haley Everson.
Hi, Haley.
She's awesome. She's awesome. I miss her. Yes, that was our first wedding, and then I think the second one was at La Pavillon, I
Yeah.
believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was awesome. I remember that, and that was actually my first time working with Blake as well, Blake
Yeah, me
Forciano.
too. Me too.
And I was like, man, this dude is only like 20 years old,
I
and
know.
he's killing it
And
in
I like
video.
I came on pretty like strong with you guys because I was like, oh no, y'all need to charge more. Oh no, like I remember
Yes.
having this conversation with you guys, and y'all were probably thinking like, who is this girl? But I was like, no, like you need to charge your worth.
No, whenever you told me that inside, I was like, yes, yes, I'm ready to go up on my price.
I'm going up my prices right now.
Yes, I needed to hear that whenever you told me.
Sometimes we just need someone else to tell us something. I have wedding planner friends and we'll call each other. Like just the other day, I was talking to one of them and I was like, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I need you to tell me what to do right now. So yeah, sometimes we just need to hear it from someone else.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So I think that was the end of my questions that I had. I believe you had a few for me.
Yes. So you already answered my first one, which was how long you've been doing weddings. How many weddings do you feel comfortable shooting in like a month's time? Because I know that like the editing and the backlog, like how many do you feel comfortable with that, especially maybe during busy season, that allow you to get your photos edited and to your clients in a timely manner?
hmm So for me, I during busy season, which is usually like September to December, I don't mind doing like 4 weddings a month if I have to, because I know it's busy season and I know my break really is during the summer. Sometimes January, February, which January and February weddings are becoming more and more popular
Yeah.
now. But I don't mind doing like 4 weddings a month. I'll do even more if I have to, only because I don't get very overwhelmed with it.
Okay.
I do have a very efficient and seamless workflow process. So my turnaround time, I'll tell a bride or couple, I'll tell them your turnaround time is 3 to 4 weeks. But honestly, I've streamed it. I've streamlined it so much and got it down quickly to where I'm usually delivering galleries within a week of their wedding, only because I want to wow the client.
Yeah, no, that's
So,
amazing.
and nowadays, like people are bringing cameras to weddings, and honestly, phones take awesome pictures nowadays, especially if you're in great light. So, you know, for me, I'm like, okay, I want them to post their wedding pictures while everyone else is posting them
Yeah.
too, after, after 2, 3 months, sometimes the buzz of your wedding just kind of goes away, and for me, that's just kind of my thing. It's just something I like to do for my clients, just to wow them, have it as early as possible. And it's not an extra strain on me because it's really having a really good workflow
Yeah.
that works for me. And if we shoot it correctly, it doesn't take long for us to edit. I know video, on the other hand, it's a whole nother giant in editing. So that takes longer. So I would understand videographers having, sometimes 6 to 8 weeks of a turnaround time because it's not that simple to edit video. But for me, having a great workflow allows me to be able to shoot more weddings.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, I tried to do that because I know people want to see pictures right after. And I don't really like to send sneak peeks because I like to send a full body of work, and I just want them to get it all at once and be extremely excited, and I want them to share the images. And I think as a vendor, it says something about me to their wedding guests as well. So there's potential brides at weddings. Usually every wedding there's 1 or 2 bridesmaids gonna get married within a year or two. They're all friends, so they're all getting engaged around the same time and stuff. So I look at it, it's a marketing thing as well, and I know that's this conversation may not be for couples right here, but it's more of like a marketing thing. So couples, if you are interested in a quick turnaround time, we do offer that.
I can say as a wedding planner, so we rely on photos from weddings to
Mhm.
promote ourselves, what we can do, have something to post on social media, because we don't produce things like you guys do. We're not a
Yeah.
videographer, we're not a florist, we're not a photographer, so we rely on those photos.
Yeah.
And like when months have gone by and we haven't received, some photos, then one, we might forget about it and forget to
Mhm.
ask, forget to follow up. And then we might not receive it at all. So then we don't get to, promote those photographers or those vendors or show our work.
Yeah.
Or maybe the seasons have changed. And so you want to show, like, right now, I want to show, like, early, January, February, March weddings, and maybe not March because March just happened, but January weddings. And maybe I'm still like waiting on weddings from, winter and fall that have like a different color palette. And so trying
Yeah.
to share those right now, it's kind of like, what do I share? What's going to make sense for the clients right now? So that's a little bit more difficult. It's nice. It's really amazing. And I'm always like, heck yes, whenever, even if I get just sneak peeks from a photographer, like quickly, I'm like, oh my God, like this is amazing, because then it gives us something to share. And it's really, really nice because we rely on that from you guys. So I think that's amazing.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
clients love that too.
Yes,
Um,
it's definitely it takes a lot of time to be able to do that. But once we get it down to a workflow, it's pretty easy. And it helps us. Another reason we do that is because it's so easy to get backed up. I've heard horror stories from couples not receiving their wedding images until like 6 months later. But it's because photographers get so backed up, and it's
yeah.
easy to get backed up. It's easy to shoot, especially if you have a family, you have kids. It's very easy to get backed up. And a lot of photographers, we want to spend we put a lot into weddings. Getting to know brides, and just a lot of people think it's just, oh, the day of the wedding we're just busting our butt working hard, but we do a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and even after, we spend hours and hours upon editing and getting everything right for weddings. That it's a lot. So it's easy for someone to get burnt out. And I understand, photographers that only want to do 1, sometimes even 2 weddings a month, and they're not wrong for it,
Yeah.
it's because, we have lives as well. but it's so easy to get backed up. So that's another reason why we try to have a very quick turnaround time, so we could shoot more as well.
That's amazing. I usually like to tell my clients, don't expect it super fast, at least the 8 weeks. But even like, so I have a bride who was messaging me the other day. She was like, is it too rude to like reach out, find out when we might get this? We already reached out. It's been almost, 4 or 5 months.
Oh, wow.
Seeing something. And so, and I mean, I like to, once again, advocate for my vendors and tell them,
Yeah.
they're super busy right now, but they're going to get it to you. And I think also if you're, delayed, if you do get backed up, just communicating with the clients like, hey, this is what's going on, but I'm working on your stuff. Here's a couple sneak peeks, maybe, if you do get backed up. But I think that's amazing. Because you're right. It's easy for y'all to get backed up. Okay, so my other question was some difficult like lighting situations that you've been in with venues with poor lighting. How can wedding planners work with clients to direct them, or work with those venues to make those difficult lighting situations better, or is that even possible for you?
Yes, so that's actually why it's always great to have a wedding planner. Because we could have all these conversations before any decisions are made as to like, okay, where they're gonna get ready, or where they're even having their wedding. There's many beautiful venues, which is just, they're beautiful to the eye, but to a photographer's eye, if we don't have light, I mean, that venue isn't gonna look as good as you seeing it whenever you're there. Our main thing is we need light. So like you said, lighting is very important. One situation that we struggle with, there's a venue around here. It's and I'm not gonna name anybody, but it's just everywhere in there is orange lighting. The walls are red, wooden walls, brick walls, and it's a recipe for disaster. So I feel like if couples talk to their planners about this before, and most planners are worried about this as well, or at least concerned about it, they could make a decision to not go at a certain venue ahead of time, because that lighting is so important. Most photographers prefer natural light, which is what I love. It's so much easier to work with. We love window lights, so like getting ready shots is best if we're near a window. Venues that have like even lighting, that's another big thing for us. So if you're at a venue and there's like a huge window with window light coming in, but then there's tungsten lighting from above, it's like orange light and blue light fighting with each other, so it makes like muddy skin tones. And it isn't pleasing for couples, especially if there's makeup. Sometimes there's makeup with a little bit of what is it called? Is it blush whenever they put a little red or whatever? Okay, so I'm learning it. But for brides that they spend a good bit of money on makeup and finding the perfect makeup artist for their skin to look horrible because of lighting. So there's ways that we could cheat around it to still get great pictures. But at the end of the day, you do want to have good natural light, and just make sure your venue is lit. That's the worst thing. A lot of photographers, we go into this like, we can't go and change the lights in the venue before the wedding. That's something we can't do. We go into a lot of situations unrehearsed, and we have to anticipate things and try to combat the obstacles that we're put into. So it's definitely a good idea for couples to talk to their planners about it. What planners could do is just talk to us about it. That way we can accommodate. A lot of brides think getting ready at their home, is the best idea, which in some cases it can be. If there's really good window lighting in there, I'd rather be in the comfort of someone's own home, and I'm sure they would be more comfortable there. But there's this one place in, I believe it's it's a hotel. And there's like these, it would be perfect if there weren't tint on their windows. I think you probably know the venue I'm talking about. But it's facing the sun, and there's like tint on the windows, so it's very dark in all of the hotel rooms, and the walls are already orange. The lighting in there is orange, so it's horrible for us because it's just orange dim lighting everywhere. And it's just not ideal for us. Thankfully, if you have a great photographer, they could work with it. We've learned to work with it, and it's like it's not even an obstacle for us anymore. So that's going to be the difference in finding a photographer who knows what they're doing versus just the more affordable photographer.
I agree. Yes.
Brides, whenever you find a photographer and they're a little pricey,
there's a reason.
Because there's a reason. I get thrown into crazy lighting situations all the time, and I could make just about anything work. I don't always want to have to do that. I would prefer the best lighting situations, but that's a big thing. Lighting is everything for us on the day of the wedding.
Yeah.
I hope that answered your question.
That was so good. No, because I couldn't have, we pay attention to lighting situations and things like that, but there's some things that I wouldn't have thought about, like the evenness. I think about it for churches, but less so for like the reception venues, but that's wonderful. And once again, that's why you want to hire experienced professional vendors. Experienced professional photographers can work with almost any situation. Okay, let me see my other question. Okay, so as a wedding planner, when we have, brides that are searching for photographers, is there anything that you think that clients should focus on or ask or pay attention to when they are searching for their photographers or during the process of working with their photographers?
Mm-hmm. So I did I have a survey on my site right now, just kind of asking what brides are willing to spend and stuff like that, just to get an idea of what the industry is looking for around here. Whenever couples are in the industry, and a lot of people are, they focus heavily on their photographers, and they're like, it's very important to me, So a lot of times whenever people are deciding whether or not they're gonna book a photographer, it's mainly budget. Everyone's planning a wedding, have budgets, and for some people they don't want to go over this amount, but they want really great quality. And that's the biggest thing. Hiring professionals, you're gonna spend, you will spend money. Photography is not cheap.
Yeah.
But it's like anything. Like, I'm wearing a Walmart shirt that's like $2, $2-3. I paid this shirt, and it's not the best quality. You're gonna spend money on it. So if it's that important to you, I'd say spend the money. But what was your question again? Because I was trying to get back to it, but I went.
Maybe like whenever clients are looking for photographers, what should they ask? What should they focus on? And maybe whenever they are working with you, is there anything that they should be doing during that process?
Okay, cool. All right. So I said all of that to say, don't look at price first, because a lot of the times price is going to drive you away from a really great photographer. Yeah. You're not paying just for great photos whenever you spend the money on photography. You're paying for an experience. You're paying for a lot, and a lot of this stuff that you're paying for is very priceless. Like, you're paying for something much more than money is. And it's just like this with any vendor that you book. Whenever you book a planner, you're not just paying for that service. They become your friend. Like, yeah. I have a bride that I was talking to last night. We were just kind of talking back and forth, and like, I'm not just your wedding day photographer, engagement photographer. Like, I'm your friend along the way. And you want to find a photographer that doesn't have just great photos, but a photographer that you're going to get along with, a
Yeah.
photographer you're going to love to work with, a photographer that's going to make you comfortable.
Yeah.
I know for me with my wedding packages, our most popular package, it's 9 hours. So I'm going to be with you 9 hours out of your wedding day, So like, we're going to need to be able to get along, like it's so important that we have a relationship. It's important that I know you. It's important that I know what you like and what you don't like. It's important. All these things make for having a great photographer. And, that's something brides need to focus on, is a connection with their photographer, not just them liking their work. Honestly, cameras are so good nowadays. Anyone could take a decent picture, but if that's all it is a decent picture and it's a pretty picture, but the experience was horrible. It was like a fabricated moment. It wasn't the couple, it's a great picture, but it says nothing about the couple. Like, the couple wouldn't do this on a day-to-day basis, but it's for me, I'm big on experience. That's why having a planner is very important, because I rather you have a great experience. Like, no matter what, I'm gonna take great photos.
Yeah.
No matter what the situation is, I'm gonna get great pictures. So like, for me, that's not the biggest focus. The biggest focus is how you're gonna feel on your wedding day.
Yeah.
I could take some beautiful pictures on your wedding day, and 50 years later, you go back to look at your pictures and you're like, oh my goodness, these pictures were awesome. But what you remember most was me bossing you around, telling you to do this, look this way, look that way, act like you're kissing, and try to make a moment like this. I don't want you to remember that. I want you to remember a great experience. I want you to remember what your day is. Your day is you getting married. So, like, you're only going to do this once, so you might as well have fun doing it. And that's my biggest thing, is experience.
I love that.
So, yeah, I would say look for that. And honestly, that's why it is good to have a planner, because if you have a planner, especially like you, Alyssa, we work very well together. And you want your photographer and you want all your vendors to work well together, and having a great planner is going to take care of all of that for you. That's why I said this stuff is so priceless.
Yeah.
It really is. Whether you spend $100 or $100,000, like, this stuff goes a long way.
Right. You're so right. Oh my gosh, that was so good. I love that.
Thank you.
I wish we would have ended on that one, but I have one more question, and I should have asked it in a different order.
Oh, that's fine.
So if a client does have a full service wedding planner, so full service, we're working with them from the very beginning, do you prefer to speak directly with the client to go over details, or are you okay with going through the plan for the most part? Obviously, you want to develop that relationship, so at what points do you want to talk to the client? Do you prefer that? How are you able to develop that relationship if you have a full service planner, and what are your preferences on that?
Yeah, so I like to be in communication with my brides, and I like to let them know that I'm there for them, whether they have a planner or not. I understand planners get busy as well, and at some point we kind of become a planner too. But we love having planners so we can focus on our job. But for me, it is important to build that initial connection with them. So I like to try to have a meeting, whether it's a phone conversation, if they don't have an engagement session with me.
Okay.
But I like to get to know my couples very well before the wedding. So most couples who book us, they will book an engagement session. And I've met them for engagements, bridals, or a meeting before, which is very good. So I can see where their head is. Yeah. However, whenever it's like a month out and they do have a wedding planner, I try to back off a little bit around that time, because that's, it's crunch time for brides and it could get super stressful.
Yeah.
So if they're talking to one person, which is you, the planner, it helps them to not stress so much. And it's easier for us because I could communicate with you about what they want and what they don't want.
Yes.
And they don't have to talk to a million people, and you could better delegate things. You could put a better timeline together than I can, because I can put a timeline together that works for me.
Yeah.
But if my timeline doesn't work for the other vendors, like, they're screwed. So I feel like, it's very important for the photographer and the planners or coordinators to have a really good relationship and be on the same page. I always come back to this scripture for like everything. There's a scripture that says um, that people perish for a lack of knowledge, and that with no vision and no plan, like, there's going to be chaos. And I believe in that wholeheartedly for weddings as well. Like, if you don't go into this thing with the game plan, with the relationship, there's no way your date could be the Pinterest wedding that you want. Because you can get the Pinterest wedding that you want. You could get it to look fabulous and still have a great experience. We need to all be on the same page. So for me, I like to connect with my brides well before the wedding. And I don't know, I like to establish that connection. And I don't want them to see me just as a vendor. I'd rather them see me as a friend. Like, I don't want you to think you're just hiring me. You're not just hiring me.
Yeah.
That for me, that's kind of secondary. The money is, the money is important. It's gonna help me pay my bills and stuff. But for me, what's more important is your wedding day experience.
That's good. No, so I love that. So if we like initiate as their full service planner, the first point of contact, the contract, all that stuff, and you guys can schedule a meeting on your own to get to know each other without us in that moment. I think that's great. And I am an advocate for engagement sessions. I think they're so important. Yes. I think they're so important for not just the couple, because when else in your life are you going to have photos of just you and your fiance in this sweet moment of life? So no, I think that all those, all that's wonderful. This is so fun. I was nervous.
I know, right? I do want to add one more thing. Yeah. So I met with a planner and a bride at the same time, and that meeting was awesome. So I was like, you know what? That's even another thing we could do as well, is instead of meeting with the bride having to meet with the planner and the photographer and all separately, we had a meeting and it was perfect because she didn't have to do all this stuff separately. She knocked it out in one shot. It was easier for her. Obviously you're gonna have probably more meetings with them than I will. So like, if it's like just one of those meetings, it makes it easier for a bride instead of having to add an extra meeting to her schedule, especially if it's brides that you have, like, I know you have a lot of nurses and stuff like that, and their schedules are pretty hectic and they don't have time for anything, especially if they already have a family, so that's another thing too, is like it's one less meeting they have to have, but the advantage of it is we all get to connect and brainstorm together and be on the same page.
I think that's wonderful. I think that's great. I've done that a couple of times, and when it works out, it's really wonderful. But that's a good point to try to make that happen maybe more frequently.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, this is so good, Quinton. Yes. I'm so glad you asked me to do this. I was super nervous. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I don't know. Like, what if I answer the questions wrong, even though I knew what you were gonna ask for the most part? I hope this helps.
Fabulous.
I hope this helps, people to understand a little bit more about how we work together, what we do, what you do, how it all works. I'm totally down to do this again too.
So we didn't get to record an official outro, so I just wanted to leave you guys with a few thoughts, letting you know that we really appreciate you tuning in, and we hope that it helped you, whether you're a photographer or a couple or even an event planner. We hope this helped you, and we're here to answer any questions that you may have. You can find me at quintoncharles.com, and on Instagram, it's quintoncharles.photo. And for Alyssa, you could find her on her website at alyssaarleneevents.com, and on Instagram at Alyssa_Arlene_events. I'll have everything linked in the official blog post. But yeah, we just thank you guys for tuning in. And we hope that you loved it, and we hope to talk to you soon.